Hey Jordan, we're live. If you want to kick us off for episode 15.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Everyman BJJ here. This is Jordan Wears No Gi. I got my good friend Noah Green here. We're waiting around for Frank the Organic Tank. I'm sure he's going to show up just like he always does. We got some good topics to talk about today, guys. We're going to be talking about a little bit of jiu-jitsu conduct, a little bit of jiu-jitsu misconduct, I should say. Some controversy in the jiu-jitsu world with De La Hiva and his student. Do you remember her name, Noah?
Give me a second, I'll look it
blanking
up.
on it right
Yeah, give
now.
me a second, I'll look it up. But yeah, potentially there's some, in everything we're saying here is allegations,
Yes,
right? And so this is
nothing's.
hearsay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know what to believe. I don't really know anything about it. Um, yeah, like Noah was saying, it's all allegations, all stories, just a story in the community that we would touch base on. But I think it's. I don't want to say the wrong name, so I don't want to say who I think it is. I feel like I'm going to say the wrong name.
yeah. Well, we'll just say it's somebody. Um, and yeah, it's unfortunate. I'd like to get Frank's take on it. So if we can revisit that in about 10 minutes, if uh,
Yeah,
if Frank doesn't show up, we'll wade into it. If you don't mind, because I want to get his take on it as well. He might know something.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
little, yeah, it's a
Totally
little
might.
tough. It's a little tough of a thing. Hey,
Super sensitive.
so as we're getting, I think as the coronavirus, with the impact of social distancing is not going away anytime soon. Um, Man, my training base is shot right now. Um, I'm I'm riding the bike now. I've got an indoor spinner, so I'm doing. I'm working with a coach who's in New York on doing high intensity interval training of ramping up for like 6 minute rounds. They go warm your heart up and then go up, uh, go up intensity and then drop down for recovery. So it's the
Yeah.
focus is on heart rate training and and doing that. Do you do any specific out of training, or when you're training for a fight? Do you do any specific work around your heart rate? Do you have a heart rate monitor?
No, no.
Yeah,
Just to be simple, no, I don't. I mean, I do extra cardio work. Like I make sure I'm I can feel my heart rate. I know how hard my heart is beating. I know how fast it's beating. I know how hard my body is working, and I try and do a lot of cardiovascular work and push my body into like places that I'm doing type of cardio work that I almost have never really done in my entire life. So I know that my cardio is at a point where I can trust it. Like I'll be whereas normally where I'm just running easily, I'll only run 3 or 4 miles. When I'm in camp, I'll run 6, 7 miles, sometimes 8 miles. And I'll do that a couple nights a week, and I'll also do some sprints. So I'll do different types of things when the gyms were open, I was in the gyms doing like Versa climbers. I really like the Versa climber a lot. Man, you go hard on a Versa climber for
yeah.
30 minutes, you're gonna be dying. Have you ever rode a Versa climber before, Noah?
Oh yeah,
Or even seen?
I've played around
Oh
with that stuff.
God,
It's horrible.
they're
Yeah.
brutal, dude. It's so brutal of a workout.
Um,
Um,
you say you go longer distance. You go longer distance up to 6 to 7 miles, or is that your? Um, I would think that you would actually just do maybe like less distance, but more intensity, so that you're getting in those rounds of those recovery rounds. Um,
that's probably what I should start doing because especially for the type of fights that I have in amateur and tough enough, the rounds are only 2 minutes. So my cardio, long distance cardio, was excellent, but my short explosive cardio wasn't as good as it could have been. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't as good as my long distance cardio. So I was training I was training just not to get tired and over a long distance. But even if the fight goes all 3 rounds, it's only a 6 minute fight. So you're right. For my next fight, I'm going to be doing what I was not doing in my last camp, and I want to start implementing is hill sprints. Hill sprints is a really, really, really powerful thing to build explosivity, short distance explosion. I want to do hill sprints and then some different jujitsu like scramble drills and stuff like that, like scrambling up to your feet, somebody trying to hold
Oh
you
yeah.
down, up to your feet, trying to push the hands off your hips, all sorts of stuff like that. Just work, but work in a short amount of time, because there's not a lot of 2 minutes is such a short time, dude. I'm really not a big
Mm.
fan of in like 2 minutes you're just warming up. Most competitions, even like kids jiu-jitsu, it's like a 3 minute jiu-jitsu match for the first match, you know what I mean? It's like, and that's even a fast amount of time. Most MMA fights, it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, a couple rounds. Like 2 minutes is just when you guys are starting to feel each other out, and then ding, 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 the time rings again. You got to go back to your corner. So especially for these type of 2 minute fights and 2 minute round fights, I should say, and amateur, you got to train a little bit differently. I don't. You're totally right. I probably was not training as smart as I could have been for my previous fights. So I'm gonna fix that in the future.
It's the hardest thing for me, but just because I I tend to um, I I tend to try to avoid that kind of discomfort. But as we're talking about, and one of the reasons I'm bringing it up is it it's something I think it will not get better as I age. But if I can just change my attitude towards how I train and say, no, this is actually your weak link here in your performance, because I've been hearing over and over and over again as I'm watching the fights lately, they're saying that exhaustion will make a coward out of any man.
Oh yeah.
And I'm looking at you, and obviously, I care about you as a friend. I'm thinking about, man, the last thing I want to see is you gassing out and having some mauler just smash you. Have you been watching the? Uh, yeah, and we can get into before I go on to that other thought. Um, there's another way I'd like to try train. There is a hill nearby, and I'm baby stepping it. So maybe what I could do is, I think for me, what I want to do is work on duration. So if I can just say, okay, right now, let's start small. I want 30-second burst, 1 minute rest. So if I pick a distance and there's a hill nearby, that I could work that hill, and I could say, okay, just not quite red line, but definitely get into that discomfort zone,
Yeah.
and just have all that, um, and do that. Now another part of this is, like when you get a guy in a guillotine, or you see guys that talking about the gassing out the arms. So instead of me going for longer duration on any part of my body, I need to conscientiously train my body for short duration bouts. So I
Yeah.
think I was just telling you, before we got on, I'm having shoulder pain. This is the same shoulder I had surgery on, and I know why. You know what it is? Unless someone get it and turn it around and mangle it, and I didn't tap out of it. I try to, you know, especially if someone gives me an omoplata, I will try to turn into a slinky and get out of it.
Out of it.
Yeah. Um, but what I'm doing right now, just literally just so I can fill it out, is I'm just putting my hands, like with my thumbs touching, open my palms up so I can feel every bit of the surface of the wall on my hands, and just pushing. And what I'll start to do is, after I get more comfort, I'm going to start doing bursts. Although this is not this is part of our shrimping technique to push someone away. It's really from our legs. Um,
Yeah.
Still working those triceps to gas them out. I'm looking to gas them out, recover, and then gas them out again. Recover, gas them out. That's kind of tough on the body for almost a 50-year-old, but It's good. So it's just not your legs. Well, what I'm saying is, it's just not your legs to give that intensity work. You need to gas out your muscles, your muscle groups.
Yes.
So when I was in the Marine Corps, we did a lot of interesting exercises to do that. What they would have us do, we would call incentive training. So in boot camp, we have this little square, and they would cram all 80 of us in there, the whole platoon in there, and they would just they would rotate us through doing jumping jacks, something called bends and thrusts, which are or burpees, okay, and we'd hold our arms straight out in front of us and high knees and run in place, and they would just be switching like 5 seconds, and they'd be yelling at you, push, let's say push. Everyone's get down in their face, and we start just cranking them out as fast as we can go, as fast as we can go, high intensity like that, and it did that for 3 months. That was the life. But I would say the first 6 weeks, there would sometimes be an hour. We would do that continuously for an hour, and they would just wipe us out. But it was all part of their plan. It's like a training plan they had.
Yeah.
And we never ran more than, I think we did 5 miles in boot camp. That was the furthest distance we ever ran. But that would be in boots. I believe we did it in boots. And after a while, those boots, they're you have these running shoes are nice, but you get used to running in boots because it has a little extra weight there. But anyways,
so like raise your feet with a little momentum and stuff.
Well, they go up to your mid calf, the boot itself with mid calf, and you tie it in very well. So it just had a very good solid structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. So I want to say all that just to say, whatever movements when you are in a fight and you get in, like I want to pay attention and see where guys gas out on, and then train to gas out, train that gassing out effect of you see guys, they put on the head and arm choke, as you and I know from our own individual training we do together, that head and arm choke should not gas you out, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't gas you out. But are there any submissions that could potentially gas you out that you would be like?
A lot of them, almost all of them.
Yeah. Well, give me a few examples of that. How we and then we can talk about how we train the upper body to gas it out. The more you sweat, the less you bleed.
So I could touch on this topic too, but let me answer your first question first. So some submissions that I commonly see people gas out on: guillotine. Guillotine is probably the most common. People always try and guillotine somebody. They squeeze their arms out. They go to their guard. They end up in bottom. The guy pops his head out, and now they're in their bottom. Their arms are gassed out, and they get beat up. That's probably the most common one that I see. Number one. I also see people gas their arms out going for rear naked choke a lot. They'll get rear naked choke. They'll get bloodthirsty on the choke. Just, I want the choke so bad. I've got his back. I have neck exposure. And then once they get their hands on the neck, they forget about their chest to the back, right? They forget about chest to back. Chest to back is what keeps you on the back.
Okay.
Always. It's not the seatbelt. It's not the hooks. It's your chest to his shoulder blades. A lot of the time people get the choke, and then the person slips off the back. And even if you have a completely locked rear naked choke in, if you don't have your chest on their back, then they get their back to the floor, they rotate out of the choke. You know what I mean? So I see a lot of people go for rear naked choke, squeeze. The guy gets his back to the floor, he gets out of the choke.
Because they're not managing. Jiu-jitsu players, Frank says it, we're in the space management, or the space deprived. How exactly does it say it? We're definitely in the space management business, where we have to close. The closer you are, the more contact you have, the more your body contacts your opponent. the better, the more control you have. Yeah. So I guess in that instance, the guy is he's able to like I could really crank my neck forward and create space there from your back. So you would have to really glue into keeping keeping your chest to my back
Yeah.
on the rear on that rear neck. So I guess what are you doing? You're gassing out your forearms.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So the other thing I was going to touch base on is the concept of muscle pliability, right? Um, One of my coaches, Andrew Ram, shout out Andrew Ram. Uh,
What's his Instagram? That's a good name for Instagram.
I do not know his Instagram off the top of my head, and he's not very active on Instagram.
Oh, okay. That's not his
But
thing. Okay.
yeah, but Andrew Ram, he's not my coach anymore. He used to be. He's still a very good friend of mine. But Andrew Ram would always drill into my brain when he would coach me the concept of muscle pliability, and he would always say even when you're doing chokes, right? And at the concept, it was like a crazy idea to me. I didn't really get it at first. Now I'm a proponent of the idea, and I preach it to people now. But he would always say, when you even lock or choke on somebody, right? When you lock a choke, you always see somebody's muscles fire and their veins are popping out and they're squeezing, and you can tell how hard they're squeezing the choke, right? That is correct. But once you completely lock the choke up, if you completely lock a choke into place, you honestly do not have to squeeze a choke. A choke is about taking all of the slack away, all of the space away, and then slowly compressing. If you have a choke that's completely on spot, it's completely locked, like a really, really completely locked rear naked choke, legit one, you should only have to squeeze about 10%. The problem with a lot of MMA fighters is they get onto the choke and there's so much space in the choke, right? They grab onto the choke and instead of they'll be on the choke like this, and instead of cinching the choke and turning their elbow and punching the choke in deeper, they'll have the choke like this, and then what do? They just squeeze as hard as they can, right? They take the space away by squeezing their muscles. But then what if there's more space? They've already squeezed their muscles. How are they going to take that little extra half inch that the person's breathing away from? You know what I mean? If they take all of the slack away first, and your muscles are completely loose, like Andrew Ram used to say, like loose, limp like noodles, right? Your muscles have to be super, super limp, and that also allows them to move around. If your muscles are very tense and hard, you get set in certain chokes, and you can't really move the choke because everything's tense and everything's fired.
Yeah,
If your arms
yeah.
are loose and relaxed, you can punch your arms in deeper and move your body around way easier. So you have to make your body really, really loose and pliable, and make sure that you're not building up lactic acid in your arms. When you squeeze and you're firing your muscles like that, it releases lactic acid, and that's what makes your body and your muscles get tired. You know what I mean? That's from the squeeze. That squeeze should be very, very minimal when you've already taken all the space away, and it should be very, very minimal squeeze to get the choke. And a little story on that real quick. So I've been, like I said, controversial, but I've still been rolling. I've still been rolling as much as I can. And I'm not going to say his name, but I actually have a buddy of mine who is notorious for just grunting and breathing way too hard and hurting people and being just a big, big, strong guy that everybody's scared to roll with. Nobody wants to roll with him. He's like 250 pounds, just just big, big T-Rex guy. Like nobody wants to roll with this guy. You can hear him across the mat. Everybody, everybody was like, yo, dude, like, yo, you need to relax, man. You're gonna hurt somebody. Nobody wants to roll with you. Like you're always trying to hurt people. You're hurting people's necks. Like you're twice the size as everybody else. Like you can't roll like this, man. You need to learn to control yourself. And he's been training probably about 3 years now. He's a blue belt now.
Okay.
And I've been training with him in the garage at my buddy's house. And he's a good friend of mine. I like him. He's a good guy. I've known him for a long time. But I rolled with him probably a week ago, And as I was rolling with him, I noticed that he was breathing he was very conscious of his breathing, and he was trying to control his breathing the entire roll. And he pulled guard, and he was playing guard, and he was being really, really technical and stuff. And he did a lot better than any previous times I've seen him roll in the past. And I told him, okay, awesome job, dude. But now I'm going to tell you something that sounds a little bit crazy. I can tell you're trying to breathe. You're doing an awesome job at breathing. You're thinking. You're being more technical. That's awesome. But now I need you to relax. And he was like, huh? And I was like, now I need you to relax. All right. So you're breathing. That's awesome. But your muscles from head to toe, man, you were on your back. I was trying to pass your guard, and I grabbed your legs, and I just felt nothing but tenseness. Right. His body was tense from head to toe, and he was laying down on his back. So if your body and you're tense the entire time, you're not loose and relaxed, your body is spending a ton of energy just keeping your body tense and firing all your muscles at once. It's taking a lot of energy just doing that. I told him that, and then I seen him like 4 or 5 days later. And like I said, he's only a blue belt. He's a really, really big guy. He's like 250 pounds. He's getting really good. He's getting really good. I told him that. He came back, and he was like, okay, Jordan, we're going to roll again, and I'm going to focus on relaxing. And I was like, all right, awesome, dude. Let's roll. Man, what do you think happened, Noah?
Probably. Well, either if the medicine worked, he had a good roll. If
We rolled for 25 minutes, so we had a good roll. We rolled for 25 minutes, but within the first 2 minutes of the roll, dude taps me with a knee bar, and I was like, no! Like he rolled into a knee bar, and he's a really big guy, you know what I mean? He didn't hurt me at all, but he rolled into a knee bar, completely controlled knee bar. I tried to twist out, was not going anywhere. He started to hip into the knee bar a little bit. I had to tap. I was like, oh man, you got me. Like,
so his game is really on. His game is really on.
His game is getting really, really, really good.
Yeah.
And as I was rolling with him, you know what I mean? I was telling him too. He was like, I need to relax more. I need to relax more. And I was like, man, it's not going to happen overnight. I just seen you like a couple days ago. But the change just in those last couple days has been massive, right? Because the guy's so big, you know, he's 250 pounds. The only reason why I can beat him in the past is because he gets tired. I tire him out, and then once he's tired, he's not making smart decisions anymore. And then I can catch his neck. I can catch him in the scrambles. I can catch him easily because he's tired and he's already expended his energy. He doesn't have more energy to expend. So once I start scrambling and turning up the pace, he doesn't have more energy. This roll, though, was different. I rolled with him for 25 minutes. I didn't tap him until like 20 minutes in, and I was trying really hard. Like, I was like, man, all right, he caught me in the knee bar. Okay, now I got to get him back. And I was trying so hard to submit the guy, and I could not submit the guy. He was making smart decisions. He was only expending energy when he had to expend energy. I got him in the mount, and then when I got him in the mount, boom, he bridged his hips, popped me up like a bench press, and then pushed me back in front of the guard. But that was one of the few moments where he used strength. That's what I was trying to stress to him. It's about controlled bursts of strength, knowing when to use your strength is the topic I'm trying to get about here. You need to be loose and relaxed and pliable, loose, until you're not, until you're snapped on the neck. You know what I mean? But you need to be loose until you're in the prime, complete spot, until you're ready to kill the guy. You know, if you jump the gun, there's too much space, there's too much slack in the choke, and then you try and take the slack away by your squeeze, then you're going to burn your arms out most likely, and then, you know, it's really hard to fight a guy when your arms are burned out. So
there's an analogy here I want to share with you. Before I went into finance and accounting, I was thinking strongly about becoming a physician, and I never wanted to be a surgeon. But I read books about surgeons. You know, I was doing some career exploration while I was in the Corps. It gave me time to, you know, research careers of like, okay, what am I going to do when I get out, and you know, what am I going to study? And I was thinking of either becoming a physician or I would go into accounting, finance. I questioned my wisdom back then, but I want to bring up the concept of wisdom. And speaking of wisdom, we have Frank joining us.
Hey.
Let me go. Yeah. Um,
Frank's a good guy.
hey, Frank, welcome aboard. I'm just telling a little story real quick. How you doing?
I'm good, buddy. I hope you guys can hear me okay with the audio.
Yeah, yeah, you sound good. Well, we're live. We went. I think we went live a little while ago, but let me finish my thought with Jordan. So Jordan, um, one of the things I read in the book was you can teach a surgeon. You can teach a you can teach a surgeon the skill of cutting open a person and the technique within 1 to 2 years. However, for a surgeon, it takes up to 12 years to really become a full fledged general surgeon. 12 years of training, and it's it's because they don't spend all that time learning how to cut. How to make the incisions, all that. It's when to cut, when should they cut, and that's wisdom. And a lot of technique that is being taught. The technique, the mechanics of where physical placement. But there's a wisdom to how to approach your time on the mats because it's going to be very limited. You know,
Yeah.
and the way I go approach rolling is I like to roll as though I'm. If you were to roll with me 15 years from now, although my strength and my athleticism has changed, you should be able to sense the same level of intensity of approach, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. The same, I should be the same jujitsu. Skills will be much better by then, but there's a sense of that, and that's hard to learn. That's hard to learn, very hard to learn. But that's my goal. It doesn't mean I'm there. Frank, went to, and if Jordan, you don't mind, I want to jump into that question,
Oh
um,
yeah.
and then, but anyways, Frank, we held off on bringing up a topic. Did you hear anything about the controversy with De La Hiva recently?
Yeah, I saw some stuff on social media about that.
All this is alleged, but all I saw was that there was various parties, um, and some accusations, and I don't know if it's been corroborated, or anything. But this is quite a whopper of a set of allegations. What are your views on on this delicate matter? Not so much as the specifics, but what do you do in a situation where things may have occurred or may not have occurred, and it's hearsay, and you're dealing with in the current stream of Me Too. How what are some of your thoughts on how to analyze that?
It's a loaded. It's just a loaded situation. It's very hard. I mean, there's so many moving pieces to that. Um, I was a cops and courts reporter for years, in with newspapers in Las Vegas and in Utah. And so I covered death penalty cases. I'd cover homicides. I'd cover if a kid went off to Iraq and died and didn't come home, and then his parents got notified by the coroner's office, and then I'd have to knock on the parents' um, door, and ask if they wanted to talk about something that personal. And I've sat in on a lot of court cases. I've sat in on star athletes that were accused of domestic situations and
Hmm.
cases. I've sat in on. I mean, I can just say, as a reporter, when you sit in on cases, right? You look through the documents, you talk to the officials, the police, the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, and you add everything up. There's a lot of moving pieces, man. It's hard to know. I mean, there is definitely sexual abuse is a real thing. It goes on. There's a lot of victims worldwide. I mean, there's a ton. That crime is old. That crime goes back probably to the beginning of humanity, and it's been around forever. And it's horrible and it's disgusting. And there's a lot of people, even people that don't talk about it, right? There's a lot of people that never mention it and never talk about it. So it's you don't want to you want to take it serious when somebody makes an accusation. Um, but then on the other hand, you have people have rights, and anybody can make an accusation. I'm not just talking about this, but at anything. And
Yes.
it's scary because you do have rights. If you're accused of something, you have rights because there are a lot of things that can go on in private. It's like there's a lot of things that can go on in private between people that we don't know. In other words, if we could get all the information, then we would be equipped to make a decision, right? But we don't have all the information. And how would we get all the information? Because you have to go case by case by case by case.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just make a knee-jerk reaction, because the next thing you know, I mean, you just everything. I could make up something about you. You make up something about me, and next thing you know, we're ruining others' businesses with accusations, with anything, or an accusation on Facebook surreptitiously or covertly, right? So I mean, we have to go case by case by case, and it can take a while to get all the information you would need. And so this particular one, since I don't know and you don't know, I mean, I can talk in generalities, but since I don't know, there's so many different pieces. Their relationship, I think, from what I read, I mean, his relationship with his star black belt student goes back years and years and years. So you're talking about a relationship that was a many years relationship. And so if I was in a court of law or something like that, I would want to have a lot of input and a lot of information about that relationship going back, and put everything together, and all the accusations she says. And I mean, when you read what she says, right, when you just read that on Facebook, it's chilling. Like, it's like, I mean, like the account that she shares is chilling. It's like, and the one thing about her too is she is very believable. I mean, she is very believable. This does not look like an athlete that's like just always on Facebook saying, please look at me, please look at me, please look at me. This is someone who's very, very credible. On the other hand, this is a guy who's very respected and very credible, and has, maybe it looks like, thousands of students, and he's been pretty upstanding in a lot of ways, right? That doesn't mean we don't know what happened on that occasion, but this is a guy who has a pretty good track record of being upstanding
Yes.
on, at a lot of things. This is not just a piece of crap guy by appearances, right? By appearances, this guy has done a lot of good things. And so when you weigh it, it's like, she's very credible, she's honest, she's a champion athlete, her words ring true. He's someone who's been, he's probably done a lot of good things we don't even know about. He's been very respected, he's been upstanding, he's carried himself well. And it's just an ugly situation overall, because if it's true, it's really bad for him. And if it's not true, then it's a sad situation too. And so to referee that, I don't know enough about all of the factoids of it. I would say in general, you know, in this sport, you always have to be careful. Anytime you're a teacher, right? There's a reason that on college campuses, it's, you get yourself fired really quick like that if you're a professor and you're having affairs with your students. I think there's like a 1 or 2 year grace period at a lot of universities. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think that there's a grace period where they can't be your students, and you couldn't be romantically involved for a year or 2 years or whatever that is, right? And so, what, even psychologists, you're aware of, probably Noah, and that if you're a psychologist, you could lose your license if you're having affairs with your patients, right? One of the quickest ways to lose your license would be a psychologist, have clients, and then boom. Because it is such a vulnerable position. That teacher-student relationship is it's a very vulnerable position, right? Because
Yeah.
you have power, you have esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the biggest takeaway for all of us is just to be very mindful of how much power you have as a teacher, and to use that power wisely. Like, I would say, if you had a romantic interest with someone, you might just be like, look, we either have to be like, so this is the way I would look at it, teacher student too. Let's just say that you have two people, like the guy is a teacher, and along comes, the 30-year-old most beautiful, incredible thing he's ever seen, and she happens to be a student, right? And he's like, God, she likes him, he likes her, right? This happens in real life. People are teachers, people are psychologists, and the psychologist is like, oh my God, this is the most incredible person ever. I've never broken that oath, I've never crossed that line, but in front of me I have who I think could be my soulmate, right? In that situation, Well, you could figure that out in a way, and that has happened in jiu-jitsu where it's like, okay, that works out well. The guy, the teacher marries the 30-year-old student, and they live happily ever after, and they have children, and they're upstanding, and that can happen, right? So in the one-off, right, if there's an extreme situation, you couldn't do that as a psychologist. You'd have to make that person not your patient anymore, right? But you might be willing to do that. You might say, wow, this person and I are so madly in love that I don't want them to be my patient any longer. Maybe there's a grace period, and then maybe you get involved with them and you marry them. That scenario, right, that exceptional scenario, that rare scenario, a lot of us can understand. That's the stuff of movies, and a lot of us would say, wait, someone who's a teacher should be allowed to fall in love. If it's real love, if it's true love, if it's forever love, if it's your soulmate, you should be allowed to do that, right? And so that's a very unique, small situation that can happen. But the vast majority of instances are hookups, and they're frivolous, and they're all it is physical this and lust this. And so that's really the vast majority of it. And that vast majority, which is almost all of them, you'd have to say, if you want to be a teacher, you can't do that. You just have to accept that, hey, something has to give. Either this person cannot be my student anymore, and then you keep them or whatever, or they're your student, and you have to be responsible and say, hey, I have to respect my position, and I cannot have any relations of that sort with them. Now, the accusations here are much different than that, but I'm just saying this still brings up a larger conversation of the power that teachers and instructors and black belt professors have with their student, at the esteem that they're held in.
Yeah, that was excellent portrayal. How to set that up. I would think, if I can opine, anytime there's a situation where there's multiple types of relationships out, and what I mean by the word relationship, I mean if it's not a coach athlete relationship, if anything aside from that, and I believe that we all know what that kind of relationship is. That's coach giving technical and sports specific advice and training and motivation incentive to an athlete. I think that everyone pretty much understands that kind of relationship. When you step out of that and you want to be, I think there's something about a massage therapist type activity going on there. That's outside of being a coach. It really starts a slippery slope. And if anything, coaches, athletes, if you feel like there is a potential that relationship changes or it could change, then reconsider that relationship. When you get into that territory, just reconsider that relationship. Go, look, I have to sign off. I cannot be your coach anymore. You have to train with someone else.
Well, but no, and I don't want to. I took up a lot of time there, but this, you and everybody here on this podcast knows that this goes on. This goes on a lot. This has been going on since the inception of the sport. I mean, this has been going on a lot, and sort of not in terms of people being raped or sexual misconduct, but it's been going on where teacher-student crossing of lines, and that's been going on for a long time in this sport. This just may be a moment. Whether the accusations are true or they're not, we don't know. I don't have enough information. But whether or not, it's another moment, a reminder that, hey, we are teachers. We have a power position. There should be a code of ethics, and that we can't cross lines. I mean, that's just a reminder. And especially since most of the crossing of lines, the vast majority of it that I've seen is just frivolous. It's just hook up, whatever lust. It's not like, hey, there's two people in love, right? And which people would probably look upon different. If you fell in love with that, it's like people would look upon that different, because now you're not preying on, or you're not picking on the women, or you're not identifying the women. It's not a pattern there. There's just one woman in you that maybe fell in love. That's going to be looked upon very differently. And I've seen that situation, and that's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I agree. It's just when you start to delve in that realm. I think another thing is talk it out with some people too. You know, sunlight is the best disinfectant. If you just bring up these kinds of things, and because these are this is in a way you would say, oh, it's an unshareable problem. You know, say, oh, I don't want to tell someone, you know, about this relationship or you know this kind of situation. But actually, that's whenever you feel that, that should be a signal to you. Like, if you have an unshareable problem, then you need to find someone in your circle that you can confide in and work through that, and at least talk that out with someone else. You know, I think that's a very healthy practice to go, hey, I need your opinion on this because we're talking about ethics here. You know, it rises to the level of ethics. Um, so, you know, and these things happen, and a lot of this stuff can be nipped in the bud if you have that kind of approach as well. If you're like, look, this is a situation here, and before it even grows or metastasizes, you know, I need to talk to someone, and that other person, you know, then will have to partly carry the burden with you. Jordan, what's your thoughts on it from your perspective?
Um, I think that yeah, it's like Frank was saying. If it was somebody like going to find like their true love, I think it would be a little bit differently. People would look at it differently. But from my, I mean, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for a while now. I've seen this happen at a lot of different gyms, and it's almost always ugly. It almost never
Mm-hmm.
turns out well.
Yep.
It's usually not a good thing, and especially when it's like so. There's student coach relationships, which is bad, and then there's just relationships inside the gym, which is a different side topic, which is also bad. But just dating inside the gym lines in general, dating and jiu-jitsu relationships in the gym don't really mix, don't really go along usually too well. Usually it causes a lot of drama, a lot of issues within the gym, and I feel like relationships and training kind of like don't really mix for the most part. But then there's always those certain circumstances where you see those jiu-jitsu couples. I know of a certain couple jiu-jitsu couples, you know, like there's all sorts of jiu-jitsu couples. They're online. I know of a certain jiu-jitsu couple owns a gym in town that they're great people. So for I think if you can make it work, it will work very well. But just as like a general principle, I think for coaches, it's not really a good idea to date students at all. Even if you do think there's a good chance that it's going to work out. I think unless you absolutely know that is your soulmate and that there's nobody else that it's going to work out with, then I would not think it's a smart idea to pursue a student ever really. I think it's just like talking about like ethics for coaches. I think that should be part of the ethics is not to date students in almost any circumstance. That's my views on it.
Totally agree, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also really bad for business. I mean, you know, it's just bad for business. It tends to when someone is when there's a pattern of that. I mean, I can think of one instructor who I won't name, who I like a lot, but who had this exact problem. I mean, and he couldn't, you know, I mean, he would be hitting on the moms, you know, like
Oh my God.
program he's hitting on the moms. It's like, you know, it's not a good it's not very good for business either. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, you know, again, the thing is too, you're in a sport where you have these, especially a lot of the elite athlete guys. I mean, they're good looking, they're super fit, and so they're attractive, and so, you know, people are attracted to them because they're like elite warriors, right? They're like modern day Spartans, and they look super healthy and super athletic and super fit, and so you know you've got a lot of combinations going on in the gym too, where like you said you have, I mean the intimacy of this sport, even if it's just two guys rolling, is second to none. I mean it is, and when I say intimate, I don't mean romantic intimacy and whatever. I just mean the fact that you're right there. You can't get any closer to someone unless you were partaking in something else. You can't get it's to somebody who's never wrestled or never done jiu-jitsu. If you just came off, if you were dropped off on planet Earth and you just saw two people do that, you'd be like, what in the world is that? That is like two people that are like, that are, connected and riding each other and moving. It just looks crazy. I mean, this is the battle we had with the UFC when we wanted to get the UFC to be legalized and accepted and mainstream. Part of the battle was people were still. Let us not forget how dumbfounded only 15 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. 10 years ago for most people. 10 years ago, people were dumbfounded. What in the world is going? People who were buying tickets to UFCs were sitting there, and 60% of people buying tickets at UFCs were looking, what are they doing? Please stand them up. What's going on? It's crazy. So the
Yep.
intimacy of the sport, the fact that you are feeling someone's energy, there's a distance, right? So you guys are far away and we're doing this video and there's some connection and there's some, there's some connection going on. And then if we're in person, it's times 50 what it is now. And then if we're grappling, it's times 100 if we're sitting at a table 3 feet apart talking. Well, grappling is like, my goodness, you don't even need to say anything. You can feel there's a conversation going on. There's a line of energy that is second to none in reading another person and feeling like, oh man, what's this person about? What is he about? What is she about? You roll with someone, and when they give you every bit of fight, every ounce of energy, and you do the same, you learn something about them. There's a conversation that words can't capture, that pictures can't capture that. So the nature of our sport, the instant bonding of our sport is second to none. It's part of the power of our sport, but it's also what in this kind of discussion makes it like, it's like use our power for good. It's like, because we are like normally, I mean, you think most women won't even, if you knew them for months, and you were just friendly with them, you were platonic, and you're like a hug, it would be like, her stomach would be like 6 feet away from your stomach, and they give you that hug where your bodies are really far apart, but it's kind of like the arm hug, right? So I mean, the idea of like, especially for women, is like the idea that someone's going to be hugging on them or sweating on them, and like that is a very foreign concept. But once people do that, it makes people very vulnerable to a lot of things. It can create a tremendous vulnerability that even psychologists might not even equal that. It can create a tremendous vulnerability. So we just have to remind ourselves, not knowing anything. I don't know that much about that situation. I saw it and it's concerning. But we just have to remind ourselves the power we have, the power of the art, the intimacy of the art, the bonding of the art, the vulnerability of the art, and remind ourselves, this is not your dating. This is not Tinder. This is not Bumble or whatever, or Plenty of Fish. This is not your dating pool, right? You got to go somewhere else and do that. This is not the place.
Yeah. Frank, I knew you would bring out the best part, the ideal expression of this, and as you're saying it makes me think of the words that the quality of your code of ethics that you have, your own self, your own personal code of ethics, needs to be higher, far higher than anyone else you know. And whenever you engage in a martial art and you're a martial artist, that code of ethics where you could literally permanently damage another person, or you have the power of committing murder on the mat, real murder. Um, murder on the mat. Your level, your quality of ethics needs to match that that uh, that quality that you see of what it's like to be a martial artist. You really have to, that's one place. If any place, that's the one place where it is really a proving ground of what your character is. And you should bring your highest and best self and your highest code of ethics you can. And that's what I think Jiu-Jitsu brings the best out of. I had to laugh whenever Frank brought up the Martians looking down on, or the aliens looking down on Earth, because if they could have X-ray vision through the houses, they would see people in various levels of clothing really close and bonding. And then they would look at a Jiu-Jitsu academy and see people in other forms of clothing in behaving the opposite way. I mean, really, jiu-jitsu is such an intimate sport that the mainstream did not get initially, because they're like, what are these guys doing? Hugging on each other on the ground. Little do they know. But yeah, more than anything, when I was thinking of us coming around using the name Everyman BJJ, Everyman is because we all face a barrage of ethical dilemmas and ethical decisions. We face those every day in, day out. We're facing these things, and not so much just the technique or the talk about the sport, but I really wanted us to always, have that component of talking about ethics. And I saw this case, and I hadn't read much on it, but I knew that it had the potential for a quality discussion with you both on it. And this is not what I learned when I was working, because I worked for the Federal Public Defender's Office in Houston, and when I was in college, and so we were on the defense, and the rigor of the defense of someone, you have your due process within the game space of a courtroom. So they have their own, the legal art and its own type of warfare. They have what is fair and just. They have a judge. They have their own legal playing field and with their own set of rules. And I don't think that us discussing this whatsoever impinges upon due process, nor of De La Riva, Professor De La Riva, nor does it take away any of the weight of concern that we have of the person who's accusing the professor of this as well. We're not in a court, so we don't have perfect information, nor do we have enough. We don't have the right information, and it's not been challenged in court. You could have something. You have a piece of information that is damning, but if it was obtained outside the bounds and outside the rule set, and it's a legal process, a due process, and I don't know what that looks like in Brazil. I assume that's where the allegations are, or if there's a statute of limitations that's in effect that's run out. But in the court of public opinion, the lesson is hold your ethics high enough to where you don't put yourself in jeopardy on the mat ever.
Our sport, jiu-jitsu and the fight sports, we have to remember we're actually very young. We're very young, and so a lot of the growth, even jiu-jitsu, I don't think that even the jiu-jitsu people expected it to grow like this. I mean, you could say that they expected it to grow, but I don't think that the vast majority of the people that were doing jiu-jitsu in the early 1990s, the mid 90s, the Gracies have always had this vision, right? So I'm not just talking about them, but I'm saying the seems to me the vast majority of people who were teaching jiu-jitsu, training jiu-jitsu in the early 1990s, mid 1990s, early 2000s, the last thing on their mind was, hey, we could get rich or we could make six figures doing this, and there'll be a gym on every corner. That was not in anyone's consciousness. People were doing it because they loved it. It was dangerous, and we were still doing it, even though people didn't. A lot of us didn't have health insurance. We did it because we loved it. Our girlfriends thought we were crazy. Our parents thought we were crazy. So now, when you talk about the ethics and the regulations and sort of the fishbowl that we all live in now, right? With social media and with jiu-jitsu exploding and MMA, there's a lot of having to grow up quicker. I think that in a lot of ways, maybe some people are used to the way the gym used to be, the way it used to be run, the way it was always run, right? And now it's in a fishbowl, and there's so many more people. And now you have a lot of casual people training jiu-jitsu or mid-range people.
Yes.
Most people training jiu-jitsu now are not diehards. in the old days, in the late, in the mid '80s, in the early 1990s, in the mid 1990s, in the early 2000s, even up to 2010, everybody was a diehard, bro. You were not training. There wasn't a lot of like, I'll dip my toe in this. Can we just do technique or flow? It was a place. Almost everybody in there was hardcore, and so
Yeah.
Yeah.
it changed now. And when it was hardcore, there was kind of a code, which was kind of like, there's a different code. It's like it's a hardcore code. It's like, hey, you gotta let some stuff go. I might see guys doing whatever, and I don't agree with it, but we're like we're teammates. We're pushing each other, and so you let some stuff go. You see stuff, they're doing stuff, you don't like it, but you let stuff go, and everybody really well. When it's a small, close-knit, hardcore, everybody really well. Now, you've got people in some of these classes now all over the board, and it's a whole different dynamic, and everybody doesn't know everybody in the gym at a lot of places now. Like there's gyms where you don't know everybody, and the instructor, no matter how hard they try, probably doesn't know the name of. I know that at Henzo's is different, but probably doesn't know the name of in a big class. Probably doesn't know the name of half their students, right? So it's a whole different dynamic. Everything is on social media, and it changed very quick.
Yeah.
And now the sport has to catch up to the rapid growth, the fishbowling of the internet, the more criticism, all of the different blog posts and things that can happen. So the sport has to grow up really quick, and I don't think that a lot of people really were prepared for it to grow up this quick.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's a very good observation. Yeah, I totally agree. I don't know how much time you guys have today. It's 13 till the top of the hour.
We'll go to the top of the hour, and then I'm going to try to get some. You guys can see there's a little bit of sun going here, but every day in Utah they tell you it's going to rain. Every day it ruins my day because then I think it's going to rain. The worst weather forecasting I've never seen. San Diego's like clockwork, right? It's a joke. Why do they even do? It's always going to be 70, 77 and sunny or partly sunny. Utah, it's always like they always have like rain showers on the forecast, and it's like, and you just never know, and then it doesn't rain, and then you stayed in the house, partly because you're quarantined, but you can. But dude, by the way, they cracked down here because if you follow me on social media, I was able to get some of the park workouts, the calisthenics and the dips and the pull ups and whatever, and now, dude, they got signs all over the parks, man. The playgrounds, the playground is closed until further whatever. So they got me yesterday. I wanted to I forgot to take a picture, but I'm like, damn. And then I was thinking like, damn, can I get like a set of pull-ups in or something? Just can I use, I have my bands with my exercise. Am I allowed to put my exercise bands around like some of the metal to do shoulder exercises? And then I was like thinking, if I do that, the cop's going to pull up and he's going to, he's going to think I'm a bad person. I'm public enemy number one. So anyway, yeah, I've had to adapt. I guess it's just me in the grass now. Me, my bike, and the grass.
Yeah, no, we were talking about cardio training, sports-specific cardio training before you got on, and there was one more question I had for Jordan. So Jordan, we're not going to be able to get. Look at you. Yeah, I don't know what that looks like from this angle.
Oh, it's dips. They're dips.
All right.
Dips on the
I just don't know.
It can be misleading.
Yeah, it's confusing me.
It's not
Jordan, I started watching Dana White's Contender Series, and sometimes the guys can't keep their mouthpiece in. Do you? When
Keep your mouth open.
So yeah, that's we're talking about cardio training. Do you train with a mouthpiece?
Not as much as I should. A lot of the time when I go out and runs and I'm in camp, I train with my mouthpiece in.
Okay.
But probably only half the time or even less. So I do need to do that more often as well.
Yeah, I gotta get a mouthpiece for out here so I can. I gotta do my cardio. I literally need to do my cardio with it. Where we're talking about doing like burst training. So I can just almost red line and almost red line for 5 minutes. I'll build up to it. I'm not in a rush. Don't worry. um, um, but build up to it and just keep that mouthpiece in so I don't spit it out. I just gotta get used to having that, impediment, that breathing impediment when I'm on the mat.
Yeah, I've got
Annoying.
four chip teeth that say that it's one of those things, right? It's one of those things where you don't nobody. It's like headgear, right? Nobody wants to wear the dang headgear. Nobody cares about cauliflower, on among the hardcore, right? I mean, nobody cares about it, and nobody takes 3 days off if you get cauliflower, or 3 or 4 days off, and then drains it and lets it heal, and then nobody takes 3 days. People are just like, yeah, I'm gonna get it. Everybody thinks they can get away with the without wearing the mouth guard, and it hinders the breathing and this and that. But once you take, it's like roulette. Because the thing about about your teeth is, you're not gonna. It's not like you're gonna be getting elbowed and punched in the mouth every day. You're not. You're gonna get away. You can get away with it with your teeth for 1 whole year, 2 whole years. It's just, we're talking about the one time where, like, and dude, I've seen a number of people lose their front tooth right in front of me. It's not. In
Mm.
addition to my four chip teeth, I've seen a number of people lose it. They have to call the doc that night. They have to get the emergency root canal the next day. A lot of that's out of pocket for several $1,000s too, because you think that your dental insurance covers a lot more of that than it does, right? I have dental insurance. I pay $20
Right.
a month, bro. For that emergency root canal thing, you're looking at, most people are probably looking at a couple thousand out of pocket. One of my buddies who lost his tooth playing basketball, I watched him lose it. He's the calmest guy ever when he got elbowed and his tooth came right out, and he put it in milk. And he said that he thought that saved his tooth, and then he got a root canal. And I can't even tell now that he lost his front tooth. He took it, he put it in milk, and it took, for some reason it took, and then he went and got, the next morning he got the root canal. But I would say, bro, I've taken some hard when I took this hard elbow from this guy from Mongolia. They brought over the Mongolian, the Chinese fighters, man, and I took just a crit. I mean, I'm just so lucky that tooth. And then when I was 13, the first time I ever had my tooth loosened, I was 13 years old, and I got in a fight with this kid named Keithy. I remember the kid. You're not going to forget the kid that, like, almost knocked your front tooth out, right? So Keithy, boom, he hit me. The first shot was in that tooth. Bro, that tooth was loose forever. Like, I'm talking, it felt like that tooth was going to come out for a couple of years. I'm not kidding, right? It's like, oh, damn, that thing is still not tight, right? But it's not worth it. Like, it really isn't. I'm not trying to be preachy here, because everybody can do their own thing. I mean, one of the Meow brothers lost his front tooth, and the dentist was like, if I do it, then you can't train for 3 or 4 days. Robert Drysdale has a great story about that, and supposedly that's the story behind, I think it's Paul and Meow not having his front tooth, is that he just didn't want to miss the couple of days that he was supposed to. The dentist told him he would miss. But without being preachy about it, man, I've seen multiple guys lose it. It's not worth it. Like, when you do risk reward, it's like, bro, it's really not. It's really not worth it. I'm amazed at how many, and a lot of us think because we're grappling that you can't lose your front tooth, you can't catch an elbow. I got one guy need me, and I thought that one was actually intentional. I thought the one guy, was a little heated or whatever, and I'm sorry, that guy got me with an eye poke, right? So I got an eye poke. We just think that like a lot of people are like, oh, it's just jujitsu, and it's like, bro, like, you got to do this hardcore against some of the best and train. Like, there's a lot of rough stuff. There's knees that happen, there's slams that happen, there's eye pokes that happen, there's elbows to the mouth that happen, there's rakes across the face that happen, there's torques that happen. There's a lot of, there's ankles get twisted, and groins get torn. Like, it's not. People make it like we're having a walk in a park here, and like boxers. I mean, I love boxing, but people really don't have any concept. It's like, oh, you don't get punched in the face, so it's not whatever. It's like they have no idea. Like, your fingers get mangled. It is a rough, tough sport, and so I value my smile, man. And I would just say what I've learned is, like, now, and this is the thing, in the 30 some years I've done it, I've probably only taken, 7 or 8 hard shots to the mouth. So over a 30 some year period, that's what I'm saying. That's why a lot of people think they can get away with it. It's like, I've been doing it 30 some years. I've really only taken 7 or 8 hard shots to the mouth, not including a fight or a sparring session. I'm just talking about jiu-jitsu or wrestling. I've really only taken 7 or 8 where I was like, damn, let me check that tooth, right? But then remember, the one eye poke I took, man, it was a heated training session, and it took me like months. I'm talking like 4 or 5 months before I could see right out of my eye. I had like almost like a little cloud over it, you know. So that one was scary. I didn't even go to the doctor, but I was like, it like he almost pushed my eyeball, like, you know, back. Like my eyeball got pushed back, and I'm lucky I didn't get a super scratch like to the corner. You know, you can get a lot of damage. I was lucky I didn't get that. What I just got was I got my eyeball bloop bloop, you know, pushed in and pushed out, and so yeah, you know, it's rare, but I'm a fan of the. I'm, when I was Jordan's age, I wasn't wearing it, so I wasn't wearing it. It took me It took me to see people get their teeth cleaned up and get my own 4 teeth chipped, and then you're checking your tooth, and you wake up the next day like, is my tooth okay? You know, you do that a couple of times. You're like, is this that? That's good. And by the way, get the customized mouth guard. Pay the extra for it. If
Yeah,
you're
I
going
was
to
going
get
to
it,
ask you, is it worth that?
Yeah, you'll breathe better. It is worth it. You get it for 100, 150. Get it where they mold it. You'll breathe better. It fits better. The only problem there is you're probably going to lose it like people lose umbrellas. That's the only problem. Try not to lose it.
Mm. Good advice from a seasoned warrior of the mat. Yeah. Okay. Well, we have just moments left. I wanted to ask one more thing for you, Jordan. You know, because I'm starting to. Oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Uh oh. No. All right. I'll have to hold this question for next time. Um, but anyways, oh, Jordan hopped off. I think he's gonna hop right back on. Frank, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Um, yeah. He's quick. Let me pull him back in. Jordan.
I don't know what happened. The podcast froze. I thought it was crashing, and then it came back on, and all my audio was gone.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I saw you. I saw. I could see you. The video was fine. I guess just lost the audio. Hey, just in the last parting shot here for you. You know, I've been watching Dana White's Contender Series, and another thing I see that the fighters do is they'll execute a couple combinations, and then they don't take a step back and continue. They'll go in for the clinch instead, and I don't understand that. Why punch and then go for the clinch? And they're doing it. You see certain fighters, and they're doing it every time. Is that a training scar, or do you know? You like because I want to see something where it's like I want to see relentless, merciless pounding until you know. It's not like okay, I'm gonna soften them up and then clinch, take down. There's something else going on there. Is that? Do you? Maybe I didn't set the question up well enough.
So, when we train MMA at the 9 a.m.s at 10th Planet, when it was still going on anyway, we do a lot of like what's called fit-in drills.
Okay.
Fit-in drills is like how are you going to fit in a takedown? How are you going to fit in a clinch setup? How are you going to close the distance and go from striking to grappling?
Okay.
You know? Because when we are in clinch, or when I'm trying to take you down, or we're grappling, right? Now we're grappling, we're no longer striking. We may still be standing up, but we're in a grappling exchange. I am now in like a somewhat of a safe zone where I shouldn't really be able to get hit with nothing that's too tremendous where I'm going to get knocked out. Where I'm at the end of your punches, I'm in a very, very bad zone. You know, I'm in a good zone to land punches, but I'm also in a very bad zone to get punches landed on me. Standing in the pocket like that is a very, very dangerous thing to do, especially in MMA where the guy's hands are wrapped like bricks. There's only a little glove over it that's pretty much allows the fighters to just wail punches as hard as they can and not have to worry too much about their hands breaking. You know, of course, guys' hands still break. They still have to worry about it, but their hands were bare knuckle. There's no way they'd be winging punches like that, you know? So I think to answer your question, though, it's kind of like it's a way to keep them on the offensive, right? If they 1-2 and then shoot in for a clinch, they're scoring, they're winning, they are on the offensive, but they're also staying safe at the same time. It's kind of a risky, it's high risk, high reward to just go in with a bunch of punches and start teeing off on somebody in the pocket. I love that too. A lot of people get mad at me for doing that in my fights, you know, like but if you do that a lot of the time, you're going to land punishment, but you're also going to take punishment. So it's just a safer route to 1-2, 1-2-3, and then at the end of your third punch, at the end of your second punch, going for the clinch, staying tight, chest to chest, clinch.
So it's a safety move. Okay.
Exactly.
But and I say this within the solely
Safety
within
move while still winning the fight, though. It's not just for safety. It's a smart move. They're still winning the fight. They're still scoring points. They're still being the aggressor.
I'm just saying that. I'm sorry to cut you off there. And I'm just saying that within the context of me watching season 3, episodes 1 and 2 of the Dana White Contender Series, where the emphasis there, I believe, is on it's not enough to just win the fight. To get a UFC contract. They're at the Apex Center. They want you to go. They want to see. They want you to showcase there and wow them. So I guess that's part of it too.
What, even if you've got a third party telling you they want you to showcase and they want you to wow them, it's a whole different story when you get inside the cage and the door's locked and you've got another trained killer inside there trying to hurt you.
Oh, look, I never want to put myself in that place.
Yeah, it's a whole other thing, man. You may want to go in there, and then for sure, if you go in there and you happen to be beating the dude's ass and you happen to be really, really doing really well in the fight, then the guy will probably feel really confident and put the guy away. But that honestly doesn't usually happen. It's usually a pretty matched fight, and a lot of the knockouts happen because one of the guys got caught slipping, and then boom, something was landed. It's almost a rarity where you see like a real legitimate beatdown where it's like almost unmatched, and one guy just goes in there and beats the crap out of another guy. That happens for sure, but it's not the majority of the time. The majority of the time, it's a back and forth fight. It's close. One guy could have won. It's just whoever won that day. Somebody got caught.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
When you have somebody going in there like, okay, we want you to fight, be flashy. We're gonna give you this bonus, and we're gonna give you this contract if you finish the fight. For sure, you're gonna be fighting with wanting to finish the fight, but guess what? You also don't want to get finished.
Mm-hmm.
You've got all your friends and family and your coaches. You've got everybody watching the fight as well. So even if at the end of the day you don't finish the guy, but he has a lot of weapons, and you can get dropped at any moment. You can get finished at any moment. You're gonna fight a little conservatively, whether you want to or not. It's your safety mechanisms take you over pretty quickly. You're gonna keep yourself protected, unless you're just a wild man, which there's those guys.
Yeah. Well, looking forward to holding pads for you, holding mitts for you soon. I'm looking at shopping for gear. I see there's like a body protecting gear I could get. You could land some gut shots.
Some nice kicks at you. Throw some nice kicks.
Yeah, we're gonna work on those kicks. I'm gonna. Yeah, you're gonna be an axe murderer. But hey, thanks for your time, guys. I enjoyed it. Frank, you want to send us off on this episode 15?
Yeah. So we're if you have any comments or feedback, you can feel free to email us at everymanbjj@gmail.com, and of course on different social channels, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Everyman BJJ, and we're here every Sunday at 1:30 Pacific Standard Time, 4:30 Eastern Standard Time, filming live. So we hope you enjoyed it, and we hope to have you watch for future episodes as well. So thanks so much. Thank you, Noah and Jordan. You guys have a great rest of the day.
Have a great day, guys.
Take care, guys. Bye.